Hi there, I'm Rory Garnis from Icarus Productions, and I recently produced a video on how to build a computer from start to finish. Now initially my aim was for the video to make a simple and as simple as possible guide showing a viewer how to build a computer from start to finish. Now my aim here was to make sure that I only showed them the practical skills and techniques that were needed and omitted all of the technical jargon that can overbear a lot of viewers that are new to it. Okay, so the first thing I explored when producing my video was going to be the camera angles and how I was going to actually capture what I was showing the viewer. I knew from a very early point that I wanted the three camera angles, one being a top-down view, which I had no idea how I was going to do, one being a front-on view, just like normal, using rule of thirds to capture myself and the desk in front of me, and then the other one would be a handheld or tripod-operated isometric angle camera, capturing extra details from the side, just to give a full coverage of everything that I was doing while I was recording the footage. As for audio, like my initial aim was to do the entire video as a full stream from start to finish, doing it in one sitting, having everything there, and then I would proceed to edit and cut out the bits that were not needed, just to make sure the video was a nice concise length, no more than 20 minutes. So my location for shooting, I decided that my room here was not an option due to just the lack of room to physically build a computer and get all the camera angles that I can hope for. So my next option was to look at a room within the college. Now, with the help of Benjamin Moore, I was able to find room C204 in the UHI Moray College. This room was perfect. It had plenty of desks at a good height. It had old computer equipment that was just stored there. It was really well lit for being such a small room. It had a skylight and decent overhead lighting. As well as I figured out my mounting method for the top-down camera. Behind my head on the shot there was a lot of shelving, and the shelving, if I was utilising rule of thirds, top shelf would actually be out of view altogether. So I figured out if I was to order a selfie stick and attach my phone to that, use that as a camera, I'd be able to get the top-down view efficiently without it being in shot, with the selfie stick hanging over my head and capturing a top-down view. So that was the location in place. The room had a good aesthetic, had a good feel. It felt like a computer-based room, so I didn't really need to do too much to dress up the set, just rearrange the furniture. On the actual day of shooting, I managed to get set up in a pretty reasonable time. It took maybe half an hour of setting up, testing the equipment, making sure the camera angles were correct before actually proceeding to dismantle the computer. Which I actually at that point decided I was just going to do a time lapse of the dismantle of the computer. So I figured may as well test the camera footage while actually doing something, recording the entire process. Once I recorded all that, that was the first thing I actually edited in the post-production, which was to just make a short 3.5–4 minute time lapse of the computer actually getting dismantled. But the camera angles went really well. I was really happy with the shots that I had. However, I did encounter a lot of problems on the day. The first main problem was the isometric camera. There was a problem with the autofocus. It was going in and out and in and out of focus, which meant getting a lot of the detail that I needed was proving slightly challenging, but my camera operative, Pamela Fanning, managed to do a great job of capturing the footage as brilliantly as possible. I did manage to end up with a lot of the isometric footage that I needed. Due to some reason, problems with the camera near the end of the shoot, I don't know, it just wasn't seeming to hold up with the workload. Basically it died near the end, so I missed out the last, say, 15 minutes of the building. Luckily enough, it wasn't an imperative part of the build. I was just going over cable management, tidying up cables, adding in cable ties. I had other angles to work with to show off what I was doing. So other problems I encountered was the recording of the audio. So basically I had a lapel mic and an audio recorder that I was going to use to capture all of the audio as clearly as possible and leave out as much of the background. That way I would ignore the audio that was picked up by the cameras and just use a nice clean audio from an actual microphone. But the lapel mic didn't actually work. It would not work when it was plugged into the voice recorder. Could not figure out how to do it, and due to the time being of the essence, I had to just completely leave that out and use the voice recorder beside me on the desk. Now, doing that, I picked up the majority of the audio. It seemed to be working fine. I'd done a few tester recordings of the different positions of the recorder on the table. I picked up the audio clearly, and I picked on the best place, which was just below my components. However, upon finishing the shooting and reviewing all the footage and audio, the files had corrupted. So I'd lost the entire, it must have been 4 hours of audio recorded over the day, which was my disassembly of the computer and the guide itself, including the time in between spacing out what parts were getting installed. The next big problem we hit was the iPod that was capturing the front on camera didn't record a lot of the footage. Again, we had corrupted files, and I don't know what could have been done to stop that. We just had a lot of bad luck on the day of filming. But however, I did manage to actually have enough clips from the entire shoot and the entire day to build my video and edit it up together. So onto the editing. My first step was to alter the way I was going to do the video. With the lack of certain footage from the iPod and the audio itself not being there, I had to completely get rid of the front view, only using the top-down view and the isometric side-on view for my video. Now, the original plan was to have the video transition every so often between the different camera angles into a new view. Now, what I did to counteract this with the lack of footage was I made a small picture-in-picture, like the one up here, to show you the detail from the isometric camera while you could see everything on the top-down view, and it actually worked really well. I was quite happy with the outcome of that editing style. For the audio itself, I had to do a complete script and voiceover for every single section of the video. This added quite a lot of time onto my editing because I had to make sure I could get the video edited together the way I wanted it, and then actually record all the audio and make sure it was in line with what was happening in the footage. That took a couple of days of quite valuable time near the end to actually complete. So as for editing, what I did was I used multi-layers to make sure that I could manage all my footage that I was using, so I could have the picture-in-picture on top of the layer, having it at the right size, making sure the lower layer, which was the top-down view, was still playing at full screen, was still playing consistently. What I had to do was to line up the timelines, cut out the start and ends just to make sure that I clipped off enough so that I could get them lined up frame by frame, so that what I was doing in one video was actually the exact mirror of what I was doing in the other video. That didn't take too long, I just had to do that. It was more of a tedious task where I had to just do that every clip that I used to make sure that I got it all. As for effects, I used a simple transition between each of my camera changes, and this is this transition right here. Okay, so with that, that was quite simple. It added a nice effect, wasn't too difficult to do. It saved me a lot of time rather than messing around with custom animations and video transitions that I'm still not 100% sure on how to do. I also created a small image which was to go in between the transitions, making my transitions an actual 5 seconds instead of just a quick 1 second swipe over. These images, which I'll show you on screen, were created in Photoshop just to give a different aesthetic and also to act as a marker to show you which part of the build we were focusing on at this stage. This didn't take too long to build, it was quite easy, and I feel it gave a lot more character to the video itself, and it broke up a lot of the instructional footage with a graphic just to give it a bit more. I made my introduction in After Effects, which was just using my transition image. I had it separated into separate files, put into After Effects, and I made a short little sequence where it came up in different stages and formed the image. Just again, something different, something that was still sticking within the theme to add to the video. In the end, I'm quite happy with the product. I've never really dabbled in video editing before, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out, considering the amount of issues that I encountered when not only filming, editing, discovering all the corrupted files, discovering that cameras weren't working, audio recorders not working. I managed to overcome a lot and actually get what I consider a decent final product at the end of it, and I hope to keep on editing videos in the future. Thank you.